Gamers are petulant man-children. And how do you make an overgrown, sulky brat even worse? You convince them to spend thousands of dollars on specialised equipment and inflate their ego by telling them that the game they waste their daylight hours on is actually a simulator. That way they'll be extra tilted when they inevitably suck at it, or if they notice that anything, no matter how petty or minor, is an iota short of reality. If you want to experience the apex Karens of the gaming world, look no further than Simracers. Pfft, Karens, who am I kidding? More like Now that I've finished insulting my audience, allow me to set aside the tongue-in-cheek hyperbole to say that I really do think Simracers are one of the fussiest and most particular demographics I've ever rubbed shoulders with, and that's coming from someone who would probably be considered a casual audiophile. I thought the vinyl record elitist crowd was bad, but us pretend race car drivers really are something else. There's a ton of examples I could reach for to demonstrate this, but one in particular that has been abound in the past few months has been some of the unreasonable whining surrounding EA WRC, both pre-launch and post-launch. Don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of reasonable whining surrounding the game too, but I think because EA is involved, it's led some people to view the game through a distorted lens, and to start hysterically making shit up about it. For instance, on the Steam forums before release, there was a fair bit of buzz regarding the alleged requirements of the EA app to launch the game, despite there being no evidence to support that assertion on the Steam product page. So, fortunately, that turned out to be baseless speculation, but the angry anti-EA mob didn't stop there. Next they complained about the game's business model, specifically the VIP rally passes and the EA Play subscriber benefits. For those of you unaware, both of those purchases give you access to some exclusive moments, which are standalone rally scenarios for you to complete. The base game includes a bunch of these as well, and you also get access to some exclusive cosmetics that you can earn during the course of the season. That's it. All of the game's important content, namely the cars and rally locations, are available for all owners of the game so that there's no splintering of the player base, which for a racing simulator in this day and age has become far less common. A quick glance at how most other sims on the market are heavily laden with DLC should tell you that. Even if you compare WRC to Dirt Rally 2's Game of the Year edition at their respective full prices, I don't think it's an unfavourable comparison, especially when you remember that a good chunk of the car and location count in Dirt Rally 2 is Rallycross, but also that a large portion of Dirt Rally 2's DLC is content that came standard in the first game, but was then cut to be nickeled and dimed back to players again in the sequel, without any kind of loyalty discount. Obviously, there's no shortage of hostile business models in the wider gaming space, but when you compare it to the industry norm of paywalling core game content that fragments the player base, these moments and cosmetics in WRC are absolutely not it. In fact, this is so far from being it, I bet that if you searched a 1 kilometer radius of anybody playing the damn thing, you wouldn't find a single red balloon or clown outfit. To be clear, I'm not saying this to defend WRC as a game or to be an apologist for EA as a company. They're doing just fine sleeping on their bags of money. I'm trying to illustrate that even if you have a new sim that clearly does something well compared to its contemporaries, people will still moan about that thing. You just can't win. I genuinely think it's a pitiable existence to be such a bitter, miserable cynic who is constantly expecting the worst of something, to the point that it colours your perception and you find yourself going out of your way to smother even the potential flames of joy that could be kindled from it. I don't mean this to be a finger-waving lecture. I do have a point here, and that is to appreciate what you have. We are in the golden age of sim racing. I don't think there's ever really been a better time to be in this hobby. Think back to just a mere 15 to 20 years ago, which in the grand scheme of things is less than the blink of an eye. What kind of wheel and pedal setup would you realistically have had access to? Because it was probably a primitive clunker of a gear drive if you were lucky enough to have force feedback at all. And that's before you touch on the actual simulation quality, the displays, and the kind of frame rates games were running at back then. Now, there are entry-level direct drive sets that are downright accessible, and solutions like VR that were a sci-fi fantasy for years are now reality. The toys that we have access to now, on both the hardware and software front, are simply phenomenal. It's a testament to just how good we have it that sim racers such as Jimmy Broadbent have been able to successfully transition into real-world racing, and conversely, that existing race drivers use commercial simulators that we can all play to stay sharp and continue racing during the off-season. So perhaps the issue is that we're spoiled. I've yet to travel abroad, but I've heard a number of people say after visiting less fortunate areas of the world that the people there have so little but often seem visibly happier than those in developed countries. Whether that's really true or not, perhaps there's something in that idea that can be extrapolated to other things. For instance, I would venture to say that a 10-year-old kid who is playing Zelda on their Switch for the first time is almost certainly having more fun than the jaded 30-something with the i9 and 4090 who spends their time shaking their head at frame-pacing graphs from the latest bad console port. Maybe part of the problem is that getting too accustomed to luxury is a recipe for making us unhappy with the incredible privileges that we enjoy. I mentioned earlier that I'm a bit of an audiophile, and while I haven't gone absolutely mental with it, I do own some good kit. For example, I have a small stable of headphones, and it can be very easy to get sucked into thoughts of, this bass could be a little tighter, or that treble is a tad bit grainy. So you know what I do? I put away my fancy headphones and I pull out some old cheap ones that I've kept around, and I force myself to use those for the day. When I switch back to my nice ones again, I have a renewed appreciation for just how good they are, and my mind is wiped clean of any inkling of wanting to nitpick minuscule flaws, or any temptations of jumping back onto the endless consumerism hamster wheel. I don't think it would hurt for some sim racers to try doing something similar in order to put what you have into perspective. We've got it good, and you'll be way happier if you remind yourself of that. So, what do you think? Should people heed John Kimball's advice, or am I just a paid shill for EA? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you want to see more sim racing adjacent whinge-a-thons. Until next time.
Stop whining!